we talked a little bit about on our table about the different forms of doctoral student and levels of competition was one of the words we used within different kinds of doctoral students. So I wondered if you could talk about how that might work. So categories was the elite funded student and the unfunded expensive hobby student. And how that...
Well, I mean, it's kind of speculation because we don't know, but in a way that kind of already happens, I think. That, you know, if the experience of somebody who does a doctorate part-time and is self-funded is completely different to the experience of somebody who's fully funded to do it in 3 or 4 years. So it's kind of an extension of that, but it seems to me that the way the funding is going in those countries is the funding is only going to be available for the elite. It's not going to be available for everybody else. So if other people want to do a doctorate, they're going to have to find different ways of doing it. And just as you can now do a conventional first degree in lots of different ways, it seems to me that is bound to happen to the doctorate. That we tend not to think of it in that way because it's always been this kind of bespoke experience. But I don't think that's sustainable into the future. So it may well become something that you can do in bits and pieces. You know, you go and do the, you know, maybe the research training. Because one time you would do a master's in that and then you would move on to do the doctorate. But now it's so difficult to get master's funding, right? There are some attempts in some countries like the UK to change that. But all it does is add to your student debt. So I don't think that's particularly helpful. But if you can't find a way of doing it all at once, then you break it up into stages. So I guess what happens is you do part of it and then you leave it for a bit and then you go back and do the next bit. So you do it much as you might do a kind of distance learning degree, but you know, you do it when you can afford to do it. Now of course what that might do, I suppose, for some people, is to open up precisely that kind of critical, reflective space that was once seen to be one of the hallmarks of doing a doctorate, certainly in social sciences or arts and humanities. I'm not sure about sciences because it's such a different model. Whether that will happen or not, I think we don't really know, because we don't really know what's going to happen to higher education in this kind of post-truth, alternative facts universe.
Thank you. So, I think... I don't know if it's... Can you introduce yourself?
Yes, sorry, I'm Jo Westbrook. I'm here in SW. We're talking with Tammy here. We've all got doctorates, PhDs across the spectrum, part-time, full-time, you know, while you're working full-time, 0.8, whatever. I suppose what came across was how difficult it is. And of course it should be difficult. It's a PhD. It's, you know, it's a research degree, but a certain amount of pain. And, you know, although it's a privilege and it's exciting, it is very difficult to do, kind of logistically. You did it full time, and I'm not. It's hard, isn't it? Because I don't want it to be elitist funding wise, but I want it to be. But it's not like climbing Mount Everest. It's not impossible. And I wonder how it, you know, all these different varieties of offering. I wonder what your take on that.
I mean, I think something I didn't talk very much about, but I think is an increasing problem in a lot of countries around doctoral students, is the whole question about mental health. Because, you know, somebody who kind of signs off interruptions in my institution, you know, the rise in the number of requests for that has gone up in the last 10 years exponentially. It's quite extraordinary. And I know that that's happening in other systems, it's not just in our system. And some of that, I think, is a response to the kind of pressures that people feel like that, however they're doing it, whatever, you know, whether you're doing it part-time, whether you're doing it full-time, there's that struggle to do things. And the isolation which is present, probably less so in the sciences, although even there I'm sure you can be isolated in a lab if you don't get on with other people, if you're doing something slightly different, or if it's not working. So I think the question is, you know, what can we actually do about that? And I suppose some people would say, well, the alternative to that is to kind of do something along the lines of the professional doctorate, where you kind of try and bring a cohort together. But I remember about 3 or 4 years ago, we had a speaker from Cranfield called Colin Philby, I think his name is, who's written stuff about cohort building on professional doctorates. And so he gave this very interesting presentation about how important the cohort is to these students and so on. And at the end of it, somebody said to him, well, what about the people who weren't part of the cohort? Did they do okay? And he said, yeah, they did the same. So that's the dilemma, is that what suits some people doesn't suit others. But I do think that we have thought a lot, in not every country, but in some countries, about how you support undergraduate learners through what, particularly if you're from a non-traditional background, is quite a difficult journey. We haven't given the same degree of thought to how we support doctoral students, it seems to me. That, often the services that are available to full-time students are not available to part-time students because you want them at times of the day when they're not available. I mean, you might have a wonderful counselling system, but if it's only available 9 till 6 or 9 till 7, and you have a crisis in the middle of the night, it's not very useful. So I think we might have to rethink how we provide that kind of support for doctoral students, because it seems to me that often it's being assumed that all of that can be dealt with by the supervisor. But many supervisors have no real kind of capacity to do that. Even if they wanted to, they often don't have the expertise. And of course, yes, you can have learner analytics that kind of tells you a sort of quick click of the screen, how many times they've been to the library or whatever, but or how many times they go to the refectory and drink coffee. But it doesn't actually give the student any support. It just identifies what some of the sources of problems might be. So it seems to me we might have to look in the same way that people have talked about real kind of pastoral care for undergraduates. We need to start looking at that much more carefully, I think, for doctoral students. Because otherwise I think there, a lot of people are not going to finish things, even though they're capable of finishing them. Because as you say, you don't want the task to be easy, but if the task is seen as increasingly difficult, then people will just turn away from it and they'll do something else.
No, thank you, Rosemary. It reminds me when I became involved in student experience support here with a specific remit for doctoral students. I went to our student support units and said, I want to talk about doctoral students, and said, are we responsible for doctoral students? I think so. So yes, but they can get, have been kind of, the focus has been on undergraduate students very much, whereas it's really important for doctoral students too. Oh.
Barbara, you'll be pleased to know somebody who's been through the doctoral school at Sussex and been trained has now been moved into the student life centre.
Exactly.
So there is one person there
Well
that
done.
has some conception of the PhD. I think we've spoken a lot about sort of the complex coagulation of expectations in the doctorate, and I was quite interested to ask you where you thought power now resides in the contemporary UK doctorate.
Wow. I think that's a difficult question, isn't it? Because in a way it depends on the kind of doctorate, it depends on the discipline, it depends on kind of the mode of study. So I don't honestly know what the answer to that question is, but it seems to me that there's probably still too much power with supervisors, I feel sometimes. Like the supervisory role is, when it works well, it's fantastic. But we know that in lots of cases it doesn't work that well. And that even kind of, students with a lot of life experience behind them are still terrified to go and ask to have their supervisor changed. Well, I've got a mature doctoral student coming to see me next week about some problems that person is experiencing with their supervision in their doctoral training centre. Not for the SRC one, I hasten to add, but I'm sure it could be. But this person wants to come with someone from the student union because they feel so scared about talking about it. Now, with undergraduates, of course, that's fine, but you don't really generally expect PhD students to come with someone else for that kind. Obviously, if it was some kind of disciplinary offence, of course, but I mean, just to have a chat about what they could do. And I think that's part of the problem. So. And of course we've tried kind of multiple supervision in the hope that kind of dilutes the power. But I think sometimes that just leads to confusing students. I remember one of my doctoral students at Bristol said to me, she said she liked both of us supervisors, but she didn't like us both at the same time because we argued too much. I can see her point, that is part of the problem. So sometimes having more supervisors doesn't necessarily dilute the power. And as the pressure for publications is on, I mean, I remember being quite shocked at the first kind of residential we had in UK CGE for people who were directors of doctorate schools. The number of people who sat around the discussion table and told us how they never wrote anything, that their doctoral students wrote all of them. Now, even in a science discipline, I think that's quite shameful. But actually, it's seen as acceptable. And that is a kind of abuse of power. It is. It's one thing to kind of write the first article with the student, giving the student credit for what they've done and enable them to start on that journey towards publication. But it's another thing to kind of see doctoral students as the main source of your publications as an academic. But that's clearly, for many people, that's how they see it. So there is abuse of power there already. So I think we have to look at that. And that's what I meant about that point about the secret garden notion of the PhD. And of course, in those systems like the UK one, where the Viva itself is still closed, personally I would open that up. But I know that terrifies people. And they say, oh, but it's not a proper Viva. Well, it depends on the system. I mean, in some systems it is a bit ritualistic. I think the Dutch system is quite ritualistic. But of course the real examination has already gone on. And so in a way it's a kind of display. But it is, in some systems, I mean like the Finnish system, there is a real proper academic debate which goes on for several hours. And everybody can go and see that, whether they're a subject expert or they're just popped in from outside on the street. And I think that is valuable in a way that the closed system doesn't open up. So the closed Viva is also an abuse of power.
No, really interesting. Yeah.
Just to maybe one, just to say that on that last thing, I remember there was a very senior academic who, and so you probably know who I'm talking about, who for a long time none of his students would get through their Viva because he was being attacked through his students, and it was a very difficult period for his students. So there's that kind of power, abuse of power as well, which I'm sure still goes on.
Valerie Hay, a Professor Emeritus in Chia. Can you just open up the discussion a little about when you say opening up a PhD Viva for transparency and dialogue? What do you envisage?
Well, I mean,
ideally.
Yeah, I think there are some problems with the kind of continental Europe model. But on the other hand, I think that the advantage is that firstly, the actual thesis gets a very careful examination before it even gets to that stage of the virus. So it only if it reaches a certain standard does it go to the defence. But I think the value of having an open defence is precisely that it is open. So nobody can do the kind of thing that Gaby just talked about because it's apparent to everybody that that's happening, whereas in a closed Viva that doesn't happen. And often, I introduced recording of Vivas at Royal Holloway, which I've also introduced in other universities too. And you think that, I was asking for sort of 14 Martians to walk into every Viva. Because people say, oh, but the students are being such a panic about their identity. Okay, we're talking about a device about that size, the size of a phone. What's the big problem? As soon as the students graduated, you actually get rid of the thing. You only use it if there's an appeal. A lot of institutions have got chairs in the UK. I know that's not such a common system elsewhere. But sometimes chairs aren't actually that helpful and they start intervening in the discussion and they start telling people off for questions they've asked and so on. So it seems to me that if you open that system up, then it becomes much more transparent what is going on. But also, in a way, I think that, in the best of the European systems, it's kind of a celebration of the doctorate in itself, which in our system, I remember when I was at Bristol being quite shocked by the fact that, some supervisors didn't even think about how they were going to celebrate with a student if and when they got through, because it didn't occur to them to even buy, like a cheap bottle of Prosecco or something, or even a few nibbles, because why would they do that? And it's like, so we don't celebrate the doctorate in systems with closed doctorates, I think. Not because, of course, you don't know what the outcome's going to be, but also because somehow people think that this is kind of not the thing to do. So I think that having a version of the kind of open system would be a good thing. But I know that it extracts fear into many people's hearts because it's such a different system. And that they're worried about the consequences. So you can't any longer ask those problematic questions. Or kind of, basically effectively try to get at somebody's supervisor or whatever kind of paradigm or perspective they believe in on the grounds that you're going to penalise the student or that you've misunderstood what they've said. So I think that's why I would say that moving to an open Viva would be a better decision, even though I know it's not quite as straightforward as it looks. But I think there is such a value in having those kind of academic debates in public where anybody can see them, as opposed to having them behind closed doors. I know there are a couple of universities like Manchester which in theory people can go to Vivas, but in practice I think that nobody ever does.
No, thank you very much, Rosemary. It's interesting, I was coming back from a conference in Portugal and passed through Coimbra University. And they had this magnificent hall, and realised that a revival was going on inside it. So 3 people looking magisterial, and I think the candidate talking to those 3 examiners, I think, and then an audience at the back. But in this huge kind of cathedral-like environment, it must be quite daunting, but it was obviously a public fibre going on. So yeah, very differently operationalised throughout Europe. John?
Well, I was just going to make a point about that you just raised about Manchester, and I think it's sort of gone into abeyance since they moved with units, but there was in Britain there was a tradition of open vivas, and certainly I was examiner of one, and it was very interesting the way it did. I was quite frightened before I was going, because I knew what a viva was like. The thought that there'd be people booing and hissing when I asked a bad question.
Like a football match.
But in fact, what it was quite straightforward in that it was mostly, I think there was one member of faculty, the rest it was other PhD students.
Can I just, and it demystifies, for a lot of them it also demystifies the process.
I thought it was very good, and I think
It's in
that's
Sweden,
model.
they do.
It's different from the Scandinavian model, for example, where everything's been sorted out in advance, or the French model. But it does just change the power dynamics essentially.
Could we ask our Japanese visitors?
Absolutely, I know nothing about the
How are
Japanese
doctorates
system.
examined in Japan?
Yeah. Could you explain to us a little bit how things, we are giving examples here of how things happen in the UK, but I don't know anything about how doctorates are examined, for example, in Japan, if you could elaborate for us.
We have two types of doctorate.
Yeah.
For first, and the first one is similar to the European UK system. So students enter to the doctoral program and study several years. In many cases, it is 3 years. And then submit a doctoral dissertation and complete an oral exam and complete a doctoral degree. And the other type is student, not just students, people who want to obtain a doctoral degree don't have to enter to any program. Just submit the doctoral dissertation.
That's what used to be.
But the standard of review is very, very high. So it is normally for the matured researchers, because in her generation, in the generations, elderly than I.
Elderly, it gets worse.
Until several years ago, especially in the humanities and social sciences, it was very normal to complete only the coursework and then start the academic career without a degree. So, and then the researchers, after they matured as a researchers, they submit a very big article to get a doctoral dissertation. But this system, but number of people who get a degree in this system are now being reduced, and many, and also because to get academic position is becoming difficult, so many students complete a doctor's course with degree. And in some areas, new areas like development studies, or some areas of educational studies, international cooperation, some other multidisciplinary areas, many students, university promotes the student to complete the course in the standard years, so for 3 years. But other areas,
in my age, especially humanities, we don't have any supervisors who had the doctoral degree. So even my supervisors only have master degree. So they don't allow them to allow us to get this doctor's degree.
And how are you assessed? Is it a private examination, as in the UK, or a public, as in Finland and Sweden? Private, just through examiners and the...
Examiners, but in many universities today, one examiner is from another university.
Yeah, the external.
Or maybe at least the researchers studying another discipline. Like
Yes.
in my case, international law. So one examiner is from constitutional law division or administrative law division. And in the discussion with friends, we mentioned the publication requirement to publication before submission of the dissertation. In Japan, the program where students can finish within 3 years, the requirement to publication is not so high. So one publication or presentation is enough. But in other areas like law studies or literature, to submit the doctoral degree, doctoral dissertation, students have to publish at least 3 articles in the journal. But students can include their article to the doctoral dissertation as a chapter.
That's a Swedish, very like Swedish model.
But now the situation changing, and in many cases Japan change the situation, not officially. So Japan tend to not change the system, but implicitly change the reality.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's fascinating. But there is a sense now that academics do need a doctorate. Is that right, to get an academic job, as in the UK? So it's becoming normal for new academics to.
For example, for researchers, until several years ago, the one requirement is a doctoral degree or equivalent.
Okay.
But today, the doctoral degree, that's it.
No, thank you very much for that.
For doctorate. Officially 3 years, but substantially 5 or 6 years.
Full time.
Full time.
Full time.
Yeah. No, thank you very much. Thank you for that. Yeah.
There's tour de force of all the research, and you received lots of papers on doctoral education. What's missing?
And when are you going to write it?
Well, I think that people tend to go over well-trodden paths, so there's a lot of stuff about kind of supervision, there's a lot of things about the struggles of students with supervisors, there's a lot of discussion about what people actually do during the kind of program. I suppose the area that's the least researched, but I know people have tried to do this, but you can, obviously in an open virus system you can look at that, but it's much more difficult to research the closed virus system. And people have tried. Somebody I know in the UKCG has been doing a doctorate on exactly that topic, but the issue is that, she actually attended one of my Bristol students, but you offer bomb-proof students, you don't offer students who are going to fail. So what we don't know much about is, and there isn't much research on, is what happens. We have research on why people drop out, but what we don't have is people who get to the stage of actually being examined and don't pass. And I think that's one of the big gaps, actually. And I think the other gap is this question about what happens to those people who don't end up with an academic job even though they want one, because that's much more difficult research, because they probably don't at that point want to talk to people. It's a bit like if you try and find out why students haven't come to your institution, whether it's at a doctoral level or a first degree, they're the people that never respond. So I think those are two of the gaps. gaps, but they're gaps because it's hard to do, rather than because people haven't thought about it.
And we were prevented from researching the Bible because we were told that it could skew the outcome, having the researchers there, and could also be used in a grievance procedure. If the students wanted to take out a complaint, they could say that the whole dynamic had changed because they were being researched and there was a third party there, etc. So it's a complicated one, isn't it, that?
Rosemary, could I take the, I've used my space as a chair to ask you a question myself. What do you see as the impact of organisations such as VITAI and the promotion of things like the Research and Development Framework on the UK doctorate?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult question to answer that, not least because UKCG and VITAI have been in a dialogue for about the past 5 years about how to kind of separate out different spheres that we're responsible for. Because I think that, for those of you who are not familiar with this, so VITAI is an organisation that used to be funded by the UK Research Councils. And its original brief was really not PhDs as such, although they did end up with these things called doctoral hubs where they brought students together, but their real focus was on research careers. But since they now get virtually nothing from the research councils and they've become a membership organisation, they don't quite know what their role is. But a lot of people will go to VITAI events who won't come to UKCE because VITAI used to be the voice of the research councils, or that's what they believe. But as they now have this quite large subscription, I suppose that's starting to get questioned. I mean, I think there's an interesting question also, because it's not, I mean, clearly UKCG is a charity, so we've never had amounts of public money from anybody. And sometimes it's a struggle to keep that going, because people say, well, your events are expensive. But the point is we don't have any subsidy, which makes it possible to make those events cheaper. So we try to do them as cheaply as possible. But then at the other end of the spectrum is there are now a large number of for-profit organisations. You know, they might be called Westminster Forum or Inside Government, and there's masses of these things. And they have all the star speakers. But what the pedagogy is that you go and see about 15 speakers in a day. I was once asked if I'd like to chair one of these things. I said, why on earth would I want to chair something where nobody has a chance to really ask questions for an organisation that I'm not part of? No, thank you. I'm not interested. But so there is this explosion of people who are making lots of money out of the sector. What they do is they mirror the events of VITAI and ourselves and others who are not for-profit organisations, and then they make lots of money. And they charge huge amounts of money. And one of the things that UKCG thinks is the reason they survive is that the kind of people we attract, and possibly VITAI too, tend to be people in research and development, supervisors, administrators, and people who run graduate schools or doctoral colleges. What those things attract are people at the kind of senior management team level who have access to bigger budgets. And some people seem to think that the more it costs to go to an event, the better it must be. Of course, that doesn't follow at all. I mean, some of the things we run for the Society for Research and Higher Education, if you're a member, they don't cost anything. And even if you're not a member, you only have to pay 25 quid. Of course, it's not going to be a massive thing. But so it is possible to have events which cost next to nothing, which are probably far more interesting than the ones that cost, some of them are like £600 a day, and if you want a sort of video copy, there's even more. And they charge quite a lot for the kind of virtual experience as well. So, I mean, it's difficult to know how sustainable any of these organisations are, because if you're dependent on people in institutions having the money to pay for those things, then increasingly when there's also pressure on research projects, a lot of the money will go towards supporting, obviously, academics going to research conferences. And so these other things are seen as less central. So they become more kind of seen as kind of people who have administrative jobs, which is absolutely fine. But they also don't have very big budgets either. I mean, we had a huge row. This year's UKCG annual conference is in Porto. I did that when I became chair because having done a research evaluation in Portugal, it occurred to me that actually there's some really, really good practice in terms of doctoral education, but it's not a system anyone ever thinks about talking about, because everyone talks about Scandinavia, everyone talks about Germany and stuff, but they don't think about Portugal as having that. But the row that ensued in UKCG about doing this, and about, you think hell was going to freeze over. It's actually quite a nice place, Porto, even if you weren't going to a conference. I mean, people do go on their holidays there. But you'd think I was just taking it to the ends of the earth, when the amazing discussions about, you know, how it might be really difficult to get there on a plane from Aberdeen. And I said, okay, so last year's conference was in Glasgow. How many delegates from Aberdeen came to the Glasgow conference? Answer, 1. I said, okay, I'll personally take them if you like. If that will solve the problem.
No, that's marvellous. Conference in Portugal on doctoral education sounds wonderful.
6th and 7th of July, you can enrol now.
That sounds great. That sounds great. But Rosemary, thank you so much for a really inspiring talk.